Hi, everyone. I'm Marco DiGeorge, co founder and instructor at Truthful Acting Studios. We're an acting conservatory located in Orlando, Florida. And today we're going to be talking about some different acting tips. And really, the main tips we're going to focus on today are what we want to call the basics of scene analysis, where to begin when we first pick up a scene or a monologue or any sort of text in a story. Where do we begin? How do we break it down? And what do we do as an actor? So during today's session, we have a chat feature. If you'd like to talk directly with us, you can go ahead and just put a question or a comment into the chat. At the end of today's session, I try to answer some questions questions that you have submitted. I have some pre-submitted questions, and then also anything that you put into the chat, I will try to get to as well during the time that we have. So please, I want this to be an interactive discussion, and I would love to hear back from you. But first, let's go ahead and start discussing where do we begin with scene analysis. So this is a big question for actors. We first receive our scripts. Let's say you're cast in a film, television show, play. Really doesn't matter the medium that it is. But when we take something that's written on the page, we have to somehow make decisions or what we call choices into then what to do in our characterization. Now, this is especially important in auditions where we have a very short time period from when we receive the material to when we have to then turn that in. And also with auditioning, we don't have a lot of guidance. We have to make these decisions on our own. So first, I want to say that it's the same process, regardless as if we have a few weeks to prepare for a film, we have possibly a few months to prepare for a stage play, or if we have a few minutes to prepare for an audition. The things that we're looking for as an actor in the text and choices that we make will be the same. We just have sometimes we just have more time and sometimes we have less. So the first thing I want to talk about is the number one thing we have to look for in any scene, in any story, in any script is relationship. Relationship is the number one key element of scene analysis. Meaning, and I'm going to go with this into detail, but just in an overview, if you change the relationship is between you and the other people in the scene, between you and the other people in the overall story of what's happening, and also the relationships between you and the things that you interact with, the places that you are, the events that are occurring. It all has to do with relationship. Because if we change the relationship, a lot of things change. For example, uh, let's say we pick a relationship of we'll take siblings. So it's something that's relatable. A lot of people have siblings, and even if you don't, you can kind of understand that general relationship of having a brother or sister or whatever. And on the surface, a sibling means something. On the surface, okay, it means that you're somehow related, or you grew up together, or you have parents in common. But there's some commonality, and we all understand that. But when we get down into what we're talking about relationship, there are so many different types of sibling relationships. There are siblings that get along with each other, and there are siblings that don't get along with each other. There are siblings that are kind and support each other, and there are siblings that are adversarial and have a lot of conflict. It truly depends on your upbringing and your history with that sibling. Okay, so now when we talk about relationship, well, when we're looking at a script and we're saying, okay, we're going to make a choice that this is my brother in this scene. Well, now what we have to do is figure out something called specific relationship. Specific relationship is not the title. Because for all of you out there that may have a sibling, I'm sure if we all gathered us together in a room, we can discuss varying stories of what that means. So now we have to decide specific relationship, because if you decide that this is a brother that I love and adore and will do anything for, it's different than this is my overbearing brother that does everything he can to put me down. Two totally different things. And now, as I'm approaching this scene, I'm approaching the text, I'm approaching the story, those are different choices that will influence everything else that we're doing in the scene. So, specific relationship is important. And it's our job as the actor to choose the most important relationship possible. So, let's say in an audition, for example, we go to a cold read film audition, meaning that when we show up for the audition, they hand us the material right then, and we have about 10 to 15 minutes to review it before we have to go in and do something with the text. So in those 10 to 15 minutes, we have to decide, okay, who are the people in the scene? Who am I? And what is the relationship I have with the other person or people in the scene? My job is to make it as important as possible, the relationship. Because if I look at the material, and sometimes in the text, the conflict isn't always in the text, right? The drama or the deeper story, the emotional impacts, all of that. All of that's not necessarily written in the dialogue. It's in what we call the subtext. It's underneath it. So now what I need to do is say, okay, what relationship could I have that could be driving this scene in an extremely important way? Well, if the dialogue's very nondescript and it doesn't in the page itself, the dialogue itself doesn't tell me, doesn't inform me what exactly the relationship is. And I'm like, well, I guess we could be coworkers. It's like, okay, well, coworkers is okay. But does that help you step into conflict? Conflict drives all dramatic acting. We must have conflict. And when I say dramatic acting, I'm talking about comedy as well. Conflict drives comedy. Conflict drives drama. So we need that. We need to be something, we need to be conflicted in some way with the people and the events that are happening around us. Okay, does coworker really drive this scene? It's like, well, it could, but I think I can pick something stronger. So let's say the scene was a very simple one where the dialogue is saying, I really don't want you here right now. Right? So you have to say that line, I really don't want you here right now. Okay. Well, it could be a coworker, but then we have to like, well, why? How does the relationship, how I feel about this person, how does that really drive it? So we'd have to make it, if we're saying coworker and we're sticking to that, we'd have to make it, oh, okay, well, this is my backstabbing coworker that is after my job. Okay, well, then we've just raised the stakes. Now we've made it more important. Or is this maybe the relationship of someone I'm dating that has shown up at my work or shown up at a place that may not be the best right now, and I have to say I really don't want you here right now? Or is this an overbearing sibling? Is this a parent? Is this somebody, right? Is this somebody that is interfering with what I need in the scene? So relationship is very important. And even in scripts, you get hired on a film or a play, and the relationship is given to you. It's like, okay, these two people are siblings, or this is a parent-child relationship, and they give you this relationship. Well, now we have to get into how do I feel about this person right now? It's called specific relationship. So think of people in your life. even people that you get along with or people that you're very close to. So you can have a loving relationship with somebody, but there are days and there are moments where you don't like them as much because you have conflict, you have arguments, we go through ups and downs in our actual relationships. So in those moments, your specific relationship with them is how you feel about them right then in that moment. It's not the title. It's how you feel about them right now. So it's coming back to siblings. Sure, there are days that you love your siblings and there are days that you hate your siblings, depending on what's happening in that moment. Just like romantic relationships, just like parent-child relationships, just like friends. I mean, it doesn't matter what that is. What is specifically going on in this moment? So as you see, it's based in a feeling, not in a thought or not in a title, but it's a feeling. How do we feel about this person right now? Because how you feel about them will inform the scene. It will inform your action. It will inform what you need from them. Well, it will inform where you're coming from, which we're going to get into in our next steps of scene analysis. But picking a strong relationship is vital. Now, here's another example. I've seen so many times. I'll give students it's like a couple, a scene with a couple that is breaking up, for example. So, and it's very simple, right? It's a breakup scene where, they're saying to each other, one person's like kicking the other person out, get out, I don't want you here. And the other person's like, well, I hate you. I don't ever want to see you again. It's that type of thing. It's very, there's a lot of animosity on the surface in the text. And so I'll ask someone, okay, this is you're breaking up with this person. So how do you feel about them right now? What's the relationship? And it's like, oh, I hate this person. I don't want them in my life. Like, okay, that's in the text. That's what you say. Get out of here. I don't want you here right now. I hate you. I don't want to see you anymore. You're saying that. Is that a strong choice? And in our acting, we always want to be fighting for something and need something in the scene. Well, if the text is telling us one thing, get out of here, I don't want you here right now, that's in the text, and I choose that to also be the relationship, oh, I don't like this person, I don't want them here, it's easy. It doesn't provide us any internal conflict. It doesn't really give us anywhere to go in the scene. It's already happening on the surface. But what if the relationship is, I mean, this is somebody that I need in my life. Maybe that I just went through a betrayal with them, or maybe we're just going through a difficult time. It's an argument over money or children or whatever it is in the relationship. There's a fight, there's a disagreement, and we're saying these things on the surface. But what if in the relationship I really still need them in my life? I'm saying get out of here in the text, but in the relationship, what I really want is for them to stay. I really want for them to fight. I really still need them. So we can choose love. We can choose, I really need this person right now. I really do love this. This is somebody I have to have in my life. So it conflicts internally with us, it conflicts with what we're saying. It gives us much more of what we call internal life, which is extremely important, especially in film and television. Internal life is the conflict that happens inside of the characters. It's not necessarily spoken. Typically, characters speak the opposite of what they feel. We avoid difficult things, just like we do in life. So picking that relationship is key to that. Now I'm going to come back to this because there's three main elements, and I'll talk about all three, and then you'll see how they all connect. Because the next one, along with relationship, is something called a moment before. And you might have heard this if you've been an actor at all, taken any classes, you'll hear of something called a moment before. And it simply means that In all of our acting, it the scene does not begin with the first line of text. Sometimes we think it does, right? It's on the text on I have the first line, and so when a director says action, I just got to jump to my first line. Or if I'm in an audition and they're like, okay, whenever you're ready, I got to jump to that first line because that's when my acting begins on the dialogue. A moment before reminds us that the life, not the words, but the life of the scene, what's driving this moment occurs before the text, not on the text, but before the text. This is a very, very important key to all acting, not just film, but also it's also on stage, also with live performance or public speaking, also with auditioning. So in your normal life, and if you really think about it for a moment, everything that you do and everything that you say is a reaction to what has come before it. Everything is a reaction to what has come before it. So if you respond with a line of dialogue, so if my line of dialogue is get out of here, I don't want you here right now. If that's my line, what am I responding to? Am I responding to something that was just said to me? Am I responding to someone walking in the room that I don't want to be there? But I'm responding to something. I am reacting to life around me. And in your own life, we do that all the time. From the moment you wake up in the morning, you're in reaction to something. You're either reacting to the dream that you've woken up from, you're reacting to the alarm that has gone off that you just want, 5 more minutes of sleep. You're reacting to something. Possibly you're reacting to a good night's sleep. You wake up and you feel rested, and it's like, oh, wow, that was a really good night's sleep. That's a reaction to that. And then every moment after that is a reaction. And then you'll notice that the good moments during your day and the bad moments during your day are reactions to things. If we're in a good mood and something all of a sudden sets us off into a bad mood, it's because something set us off. Something occurred that then made us react to that, and it changed our mood. It changed how we feel inside. Maybe we're in a good mood and we're at the store and everything's great, and all of a sudden someone says something that is offensive to us. Well, being offended is a reaction to what they said, to hearing it or seeing it. So understand that everything we do is a reaction. However, a lot of actors, they'll pick up a script and will forget this very simple thing, that everything is a reaction. It's not simply what we decide to say or how we decide to say it. It's not a pre-planned thing. We must always be in reaction to the people and the environment around us. Always. And so at the beginning of a scene, this is the most difficult because you look at the page, there's nothing before it. It starts with our text. And it's like, okay, so now I need to make a choice of the moment before. What is driving me into this moment? What is occurring that is propelling me into this scene to say what I need to say right at the beginning or to feel what I need to feel? So sometimes we call this the emotional moment before. It informs how am I feeling coming into this scene? What is my emotional life coming into this scene? So let's say the scene was that confrontation scene of like a breakup scene. But what happened prior, maybe in a past scene, is my character found out that my spouse was cheating on me. So I have a feeling of betrayal. I've been betrayed, or that feeling of being betrayed by my spouse. So it's okay. So now coming into this scene, I have this my emotional moment before is devastation, it's betrayal, it's which possibly leads to anger or some other things. So I have that coming in. And now I simply react to what's happening around me. I react to the fact that uh, possibly in the prior scene, we've said we're going to take some time apart. So all of a sudden, I walk into the room and my spouse comes in too, and I'm like, "You're not supposed to be here. I don't want you here right now." It's a reaction to this other person being in the room with me. A reaction to. It's the moment before. What is the life driving us into the scene? In auditions, this is critical. Critical. And it's something that is looked at. We look for it as casting directors. And it also is very telling to where you are as an actor. So as a casting director, if I'm sitting there and you come into the room and it's a cold read and you have your script and you're reading with a reader, and I say, okay, whenever you're ready, and you immediately jump to the first line and you skip the moment before, it tells me right away that you don't understand that acting is reactive. So just taking that moment, taking in the environment, taking in your reader, taking in that life, understanding where am I coming from? What is driving me in this moment? Having an internal thought or internal life, all of that, taking in that moment now drives the first thing I have to say. Vitally important. Now, think about this also. The relationship that we chose also impacts the moment before and vice versa. So if I have, you know, and what I say by that is let's say this is a scene about betrayal, and it's like, okay, I just found out my spouse was cheating on me, and then so sometimes I'll ask an actor, it's like, okay, so what's your relationship with your spouse? And they'll say, well, I really didn't like them anyway because it's the relationship wasn't good. It's like, all right, well then this isn't really a big deal then. This is something you expected to happen. If the relationship isn't good and it's not something that you really care about, then why do you care if they're cheating on you? What's really the big deal? So one affects the other. But if my moment before is I just found out my spouse is cheating on me, and this is someone who the specific relationship, this is somebody who I never would expect to do this. This is somebody who I always expected to have my back. Now I have an expectation of loyalty. I have an expectation of love and camaraderie. And now that is broken. And now that drives the scene and drives the importance of what now I need to do in the scene. So we can start seeing now these things interconnect. Relationship and moment before. And the third, and I call these the big three, the third is what are you fighting for? This is kind of the trifecta of scene analysis, meaning that there's a lot of other elements. But if we can answer these three questions before you do any scene, audition, film, anything, it will prepare you. You'll have enough information to then really live these moments. These are the three most important things. Relationship is number one. Number two is moment before. And number three is what are you fighting for? Now, this is an interesting one because I like the term fighting. It's also been called what do you want in a scene or what do you need in a scene, which also works, and they're all driving at the same thing. I just personally like the term what are you fighting for because it reminds us that all scenes are fights, not physical fights, not violent fights, emotional fights, internal fights. In every scene, we need something and we must get it. So fight reminds me that it's a struggle. And we want it to be a struggle. That's what's interesting to watch. That's what the audience wants. We don't want to watch stories where things are easy. We want to watch stories where things are very difficult and they have to struggle through them to then hopefully get what they need in the outcome, or sometimes not, sometimes lose everything. But it's about the struggle. So, what are you fighting for? We also call this emotional action. Emotional action, because this is driven on a feeling level, not a thinking level, but a feeling level. So, if the relationship is this is my spouse, right? This is my spouse who I love and I expect to have my back. And I just found out that my spouse is cheating on me, so it's devastating. It's a devastating betrayal that is leading me into these moments. Then what am I fighting for? Well, coming back to what I was talking about in the beginning, the text may be argumentative. The text, what's being said on the surface is, I don't want you here. Get out of here. I don't want you here right now. Or I hate you. I don't want to see you anymore. I don't want to be around you ever again. Like, the text may say these things. Those are the words that we have to say. So then what are we fighting for? Well, again, I'll come back and I'll ask actors. I'll say, okay, so what are we fighting for in this scene? And they'll say, well, I'm fighting to get this person to leave. It's like, okay, why is that interesting? Why do we want them to leave? Because you're saying that. You're saying you want them to leave, and in the text, the other person leaves. So how is that interesting to watch? I said, what if you fought to get them to stay? What if you fought to keep them in the room? And so they'll respond, yeah, but the scene doesn't say that. The scene says that there's this argument and then the other person leaves. Like, okay, I understand what the scene says, but what if our emotional action, even though we're saying something different on the surface, what if our emotional action was to get them to stay? Wouldn't that provide an internal conflict? Wouldn't that provide a much richer scene, a much more maybe emotionally driven scene, if what you're saying conflicts with what you really want, what you desire? You're like, yeah, but that doesn't make any sense. Why would I be saying, get out of here and I hate you and I never want to see you again if I really want them to stay? Oh, that's a good question. Think of arguments that you have in your own life. Haven't you ever said anything that might have been in opposition to what you really feel? Have you ever said anything uh, conflicting or hurtful or using rough language or with the people that you love? Yeah. In arguments, we're trying to win. And so what if, let's think about this scenario. This is my spouse who I would always thought have my back. I love this person with all my heart, and I always thought they felt the same way with me. And I just found out that they're cheating on me, so I have a betrayal by them. And I'm coming in. This is the scene where I'm confronting them about this news that I found out. Well, what might I really want from them? Do I maybe really want them to feel bad, feel guilty about what they did to me? Do I want them to feel my pain? Maybe I want them to prove that they still love me and that they're willing to fight for me. And by me saying, get out of here, I don't want to see you anymore, by me saying those words, I'm testing them to see what they will do about it. That's a scene that's alive with potential and alive with possibilities of this wonderful emotional relationship. Now, the relationship is somebody that this is somebody I absolutely love and never thought would hurt me. That's the specific relationship. The moment before is this devastating betrayal and coming into this conflict of this horrible feeling. being driven by this relationship and the expectation of the relationship. And now I need to fight for them to prove their love to me. Not to get them to leave. That's easy. The scene does that. We don't have to even make any choices. We just say the words of the script, and the scene does that for us. But what can we be providing underneath it and what we call the subtext or the life of the scene? Well, there's something we can provide. Even though we're saying these words, we're going to fight to get them to stay. We're going to fight for them to prove that they still love us, to prove that they're still worthy, for them to apologize in a deep way. So the words many times, especially in film, film is a visual medium, meaning in writing. And so if you're taking a screenwriter's class and you're a writer in film, one of the first rules they tell you is if you can show it on the screen, don't say it. So it's visual. So I'd much rather, I don't want a character saying, oh my God, I'm so exhausted. I just want to see the character exhausted. I don't want to hear a character say, I'm devastated because of this. I just want to see the character devastated. So if I can show it, I won't say it. So that leads us into screenwriting to characters say the opposite of what they really want. And you see this all the time. Romantic comedies, romantic dramas, you'll see characters that don't necessarily tell the truth about what they're going through. They're conflicted on the inside. They have some internal secret. They're afraid the other person's going to find something out about them. And so the words they say go in an opposite direction of what they're actually feeling. And they don't ever quite connect in a romantic drama, maybe, or a tragedy. In romantic comedies, we see it goes back and forth through the whole movie until they finally come together at the end. But it's because it's visual. So we don't want to see, we don't want to say, we don't want the characters to say what they're feeling. We just want to see it. So that's why we as an actor, we pick up a film script. We don't want to hear the characters saying what they're feeling. We want to see it and feel it as the audience. And if it's in opposition to what is being said on the surface, so much better. And we see that all the time, no matter what. Yeah, so start watching for that in scenes. It's you'll notice it especially in film and television. Now theater's a little different. Theater is made more for the actors. I mean, we're watching actors live on stage, and it's in the writing in theater is a little bit more expository in that way, because even though we're watching the actors live, we don't get as close. In film, we can push in that camera close, right? I can get really, really close in, and of course, you can see my eyes. So when you're looking into my eyes in film, you can see what we call internal life. So the audience, we're giving them a window to our feelings. But on stage, we have much more of a distance from the actors. We can't necessarily see that internal life as clear. So therefore, there's a lot more in the dialogue that is spoken about that. So you'll notice a difference between uh, theater scripts and film scripts. So it just depends on where you're at. But if you are looking to act in film or television, just know that the words you say on the surface does not drive you what's happening on the inside. My favorite example of that is when an actor, or when a script, you have to say the line, um, "I'm not going to cry about this," and it says that I'm not going to cry about this, and this comes up a lot actually. The best thing as I guide an actor is say, "Okay, this is where we have to put deep emotion is on top of this line." And they're like, yeah, but it says I'm not going to cry about this. I really don't care about this. This, or the line is, no, I'm not bothered by this at all. It's like, yeah, but wouldn't it be great if you were? Wouldn't it be great if you, as the character, as this person, are saying this to try to look stronger than you actually are in the moment? You're really breaking down on the outside, but you're trying to show that you have it all under control on the outside. And you're even saying, "No, I'm not going to be bothered by this. I'm not going to cry about this," as you're fighting back the tears. Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful scene, and we see this actually over and over. So so watch for these moments. Relationship, moment before, and what are you fighting for? And you can start to see them in scenes. You can start to see at least the choices they've made for the characters. Who knows what actual choices the actors have made, but you'll start to see that the characters, it's very clear what the relationship is, and it's very clear where these characters are coming from emotionally. Right at the start of the scene, like what they're feeling, what they're going through. And it's also very clear what they need, what they are fighting for in the scene. And if you start looking at that and then working with those concepts, that will elevate your acting, especially in the audition process where you don't have a director guiding you or a teacher guiding you. Okay, so that's really what I wanted to talk about today. We call that the big three, and it's something we work on heavily at the studio. I work on it in a few different semesters, and it's it's really a vital part of scene analysis. Now I know there's a lot of other aspects and nuance to scene analysis, of course. And if we're breaking down a whole script because we're already cast and we have a few months to go over the material, well, there's other things that we can look at. But really, if you stick to these, what I like to do when I'm training actors is I like to try to make it as uh, simple as possible at first, meaning sometimes we don't have a lot of time and I can't worry about 10 different things I need to think about. So, what I like to do is bring it down and say, okay, well, here's three. This is all I want you to think about are these three things: the relationship, the moment before the scene, emotionally, and what you're fighting for. And if you can do that, that alone will elevate your acting. So now I want to get into some questions that were submitted in prior. The first question that came in was for me: when did you decide that you wanted to be an actor? I it's hard to pinpoint the exact moment. It was a while ago, but I do remember early on in middle school being so enamored by film actors and the things that they could do. And of course, I was raised during the generation that we saw Star Wars and Indiana Jones and movies like that for the first time as they were just coming out. And so, watching some of these really big type of stories on the screen, and especially characters, heroic characters like that, that was my first introduction to what acting could be, and I fell in love with it at that point. I didn't do anything about it, but we would, as kids, we would play around with it and reenact scenes from these movies. Me and my friends, and that was a lot of fun. So that was probably my first foray into it. Then in high school, I remember in middle school, I dabbled in it a little, but I was very shy. I was a complete introvert. I still am. I still am an introvert, but I was really heavily introverted in middle school, and then in high school, I tried it again, and again, I had this crazy social anxiety, shyness, and I just couldn't get myself to do any sort of drama. So I shied away from it, unfortunately. In college, I studied communication and film production and public speaking. I started studying those aspects more and more, and I began to open up a little bit more in college, but still couldn't get myself to step on stage or to do anything bigger than that. I really the social anxiety was too much. Well, I came out of college and went into the corporate world for about a decade. And in the corporate world, I learned a lot. I learned just a lot about how to interact with people, how to speak in front of people. I furthered my public speaking skills and learned that I really loved the interaction with people and putting on shows, for example, for people, performances, because in the corporate world, you're performing in some way all the time. And but I didn't really like the corporate world, meaning it ultimately wasn't for me. Uh, that business end, I still had this love for the arts that never went away. And so finally, that love for the arts bloomed, and I couldn't avoid it anymore. And so I re-entered acting, and which led to then filmmaking, which led to then producing and all of the different ventures that I did from there. So I guess to answer the question, the actual decision to be an actor didn't come until a little later in life. Late 20s, early 30s was when I said, no, I'm going to do this and go for it full time. But my love for it, middle school, is when I developed that love for it. And I think that's important to say because we run across this quite often where someone may have a love for the arts early on in their life, but life gets in the way. And so, because life gets in the way, we uh, we get diverted. We have excuses, right? There's family reasons, there's money reasons, there's all sorts of different reasons that we can't get it right then. But the wonderful thing about acting is that we can always go back to it. We can always start it. We can begin the process later in life. We can come back to it later in life. Like there is no age limit in acting. There's very few limits in acting, really. And so I love the art because of that. And so wherever you are in your career or your art or your passion, it's never too early or too late to pursue it. Uh, okay, so there is let's see. So Patrick asked a question: can you have a conflict relationship with yourself? Okay, so uh, yes, yes. A conflicted relationship with yourself we see this often in acting, meaning if you if you are struggling, if you the character or just like you the person in life, you really want to do something, but there's something that is causing you not to do it internally. And we run across this in life where, let's say you in life really want to explore acting, for example, but in your head you feel you have this fear that I can't do that right now because I have to pay the bills, I have to make money. Well, that's what we call an internal conflict. Internally, our heart, or this part of us which we feel, our gut, our emotions, our desires, is at conflict with our mind, what we are thinking about or what we fear, the worries we have. So in our mind, we need to stay safe and we need to make enough money. So I need to stay in a regular job. I can't go pursue this thing that I really want to pursue. But internally, I really want to go pursue this. I'm not happy just working for money. It's called an internal conflict. Characters have that quite often. Actually, in the hero's journey, which is a common structure, it's anything from Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, Star Wars, Avengers. It's the hero's journey. Typically, in the first movie of that, when you see the origin of the hero, they go through a lot of internal conflict. Initially, they're like, "Well, I never asked to be the hero. I never asked to have these powers. I never right." It's they have that type of thing. They have all these new powers, but they don't necessarily want these new powers, or they don't want the responsibility of having them, or maybe they don't believe in themselves. So there's a conflict until at the end of the movie when they finally have that self-belief and they overcome whatever it is. Uh, it's it's probably best defined in the movie The Matrix. It's the path of Neo through the Matrix, the first movie. Let's be clear. The first movie of the Matrix. It's the path of Neo of it's you can't really arrive somewhere until you fully believe. And so uh, that really shows something called internal conflict. Also, in the movie A Star Is Born, if you saw that with Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper, it's a romantic drama, and they have this love for each other, but there's certain things they can't say to each other, and it ends up causing a lot of conflict. But it's not just with each other, it's in themselves. It's Bradley Cooper has a troubled past and a troubled, present, and and he's so afraid to open up, even though he has a deep desire to open up to his love interest. He has this internal conflict about doing that, and then he doesn't. Which is we see that a lot in our acting. And so that's we call internal conflict. It's a character having conflict with themselves. They feel one thing and they want one thing, but they do something else. So yes, and it's very interesting to watch. It's compelling to watch. So next question that we have: how important are accents? And if I already speak with an accent, do I need to get rid of it? So this comes across often as well as uh, because we're in America, we're it's people from all over the world that come here, and so the question is, well, okay, so if I'm from another part of the world and I come here and I still have a flavor of that accent, I still have a flavor of something European or South American or Australian, wherever it is, Asian, what do I need to do? Good news, nothing. Your accent is your accent. Don't worry about it. Leave it alone, let it go. Now, with that, if you're going to work in American film, American theater, that you need to speak English, well, yeah, we have to learn how to speak English clearly. And really, this is for those who already speak English fluently. We still have to learn how to speak English clearly because the words that we speak it's important that the audience can hear them and understand them. So we have something called vocal clarity that we work on. Vocal health. We learn how to use our voice in a certain way. We learn how to breathe in a certain way. We learn how to project our voice in a certain way. These are all things that are very important. But as far as your accent, no, let your voice be your voice. But if they're casting a film and you have a British accent, for example, like a lot of the British actors do, they might ask you to apply an American accent, a standard American accent to it. Now, that's something you can do. So if you're originally from Brazil and you have that flavor of an accent in your actual speaking voice, you don't have to get rid of that. That's who you are. Keep that. It's beautiful. But you can learn a standard American accent. So just like we would learn any other accent. We want to learn a British accent, we would learn that. We would learn standard British, or we would learn Cockney, or Northern Ireland, or we would learn the accent that we would want. In the same way, if you speak with an accent, you can learn a standard American accent. Just like all of the great British actors do. They learn standard American, so then they can come over here and play in an American role. As far as how important are accents, here's the thing with accents. I do believe it's important for all actors to go through the process of learning an accent, at least one. But It's not important to put on your resume that you can do 5 different accents or 10 different accents. That's not necessarily important because accents are very specific to the characters you're going to portray. We rarely, unless rarely do we ever just pluck out a generic accent like standard British and just apply it to a character. It sounds cliche. Accent work is very much like developing the rest of the character. It's voice work. We have to really step in fully to who this person is that we're portraying. And while they are from this region of the world, which is why they speak with this accent, it's much more unique than that. It also represents their upbringing. It also represents who they were surrounded with earlier in life. It also represents their socioeconomic class. It represents so many different things. It represents whether they're educated or uneducated, of whether they're speaking more properly or with slang. So the accent will, when you work on it as an actor, in a film or on stage, we always want to develop it all the way to that level. So learning an accent as an actor takes a lot of time to do and is very specific. So what I always like to suggest to actors is, sure, if you want to learn an accent or two, you can learn it generically. Learn the cliched standard British or cliched American Southern or whatever you want to learn, Australian, New Zealand. But then understand that you're going to have to develop it further for the characters that you step into. The nice thing about having just at least one accent to show that you can do is you can put that on your resume as an accent, and you can demonstrate that to casting directors and directors or whomever's asking. And you can demonstrate that you have the ability to change your voice. That's really where it comes into. We change our voice. And sometimes it's not really an accent as we know it, an accent as we would come to think of it, but really as actors, we always want to be adapting our voice for the characters that we inhabit. Because the character's voice is going to be different than ours. And it's possibly just that this character speaks more quickly than we do, or this character is more thought provoked, so they slow things down a bit. It could be something as simple as that. It could be tone. This character speaks with just a slightly deeper tone. Or this one speaks more highly and it's more effective, right? So that we can just do slight changes of the voice to help us step into the life that we need for the character. And so voice work is one of those things that I think is very important for actors to learn. Just like physical work is very important, learning how to use our body to inhabit a character. Some characters are more broad and their shoulders are back and their chin is up, and others are kind of more together and more down and more slumped. It just depends on who this person is and what walk of life they come from. So that's what I would say there. Let's see. I think we have time for one more. What is the secret to auditioning? As I go to one more, it's a pretty big one. So the secret to auditioning. Okay, well, let me. I think what I can do, I can answer this question, the secret to auditioning, by unfolding a misconception to auditioning. The misconception to auditioning is that auditioning is somehow different than everything else we do as an actor. And in fact, it's taught this way quite a bit all over the country. Here in America, it's taught that auditioning is this whole separate type of acting that we do. And I think that's one of the big reasons it gets in the way of actors, is that it's put into our mind that, oh my God, auditioning is so different than acting. I'm a good actor, but I just can't audition. It's like, okay, so let me try to break down that misconception. And really what I would love for you to do is not think of it as different, but instead think of it as just a miniature version of exactly what you're going to do as an actor, either on set or on stage. When you audition, when you go into a film audition, you're asked to walk in, you stand on a mark. There's the casting director and sometimes some other people there observing you. There's a reader, somebody that you're going to be reading the lines with across from you. And there's a camera that is recording you. And it feels foreign because we're in this empty room and it's very stark and I'm standing on this thing. It's just, I don't know anyone. So it feels very awkward. But what I like to show actors is that this is really no different than what you're going to do on set. It's a much smaller environment, and you might have larger set pieces. You might even be on location, so the set's a little different, and there's more people around you, and there's more lighting, and there's more, more crew around you. But it's the same thing. You, as the actor, are going to be brought in. You're going to be standing on a mark. There's going to be people everywhere around you watching you and observing you. There's going to be a director talking to you and telling you what they're looking for and adjusting you, just like in an audition. You're going to be reading with your scene partner, or possibly, if not your scene partner, a someone in production that is on script, so a reader. And there's going to be a camera pointed at you, recording everything you do. That's a film set. It's the same thing we do in a film audition. It's just a film audition is a microcosm of the whole thing. And a film set is the macro version. So when we start looking at it that, oh, it's just like being on set, then we realize it's no different. They're not looking for anything different. We don't have to do anything different. We have to go in there and live these moments. And if you start thinking of an audition of, oh, I'm being called to set, and this is the script I have. Because sometimes in film, and especially in television, you're handed the script very shortly before you perform because they're doing rewrites. And so we get the rewrites sometimes moments before we go on. And so it's okay. So we have that. We have the script in front of us. We're just going to pretend we don't. We use it, but we keep the life. And I'm just going to go in there and give a performance as if this was being recorded for the actual film. I'm going to make my choices of relationship, moment before, what am I fighting for? That's all I need to do in the 10, 15 minutes prior. Just make those decisions. I'm going to read the scene over and over and over again just to be familiar with it. I'm not going to memorize. I don't need to do that. I'm going to use the script. But then I'm going to go in and give a performance as if I was already cast and this is the day they're shooting this scene. If you do that, it changes auditioning for you. To me, it makes it much more fun because now you're going on set to shoot something. You're not going into this cold audition room where we have the mindset that they're criticizing us, which they're not. They're not. Because they're evaluating the same thing. They're imagining, okay, imagine we're on set right now. I'm the director and I'm directing you. Am I getting what I want? So it's the same type of thing. That will help tremendously. At least lower the amount of anxiety that comes along with audition. It's just changing your focus of it. Stage is no different. Understand in stage, we ask for monologues for auditions. But please understand that when you stand on stage and you perform a monologue, if I cast you in one of my stage productions, there's probably going to be a point in the play where I'm going to bring you downstage. You're going to look over the audience because it's called a downstage moment, and you're going to perform a monologue. There's something that you're going to be saying, which you're going to be looking over the audience. It's when we do that, this is like the close-up on film when we bring the actor downstage. This is their close-up moment. So I'm looking for the same things I'm looking for in a play. It's like, okay, this is just that moment in the play that I'm going to be doing where I'm going to bring you downstage and I want to see how you handle that moment. But I'm looking for the exact same things I would be doing in the play. your commanding of the stillness in that moment, your use of your voice, the believability of the things that you're saying. I'm looking for the same things. So as an actor, when you go and you perform a monologue on a stage, this is a performance. The people that are out here watching you, they're not your auditors. This is your audience. So allow yourself to go and actually live these moments as if this is a paid audience in front of you. And for me, that was a really big awakening to changing the mindset of auditioning, and to me was it kind of demystified what auditioning really was. Okay, wow, I can't believe we are the hour has gone by so quick, but I really appreciate you being with us today. If you have any other questions, please feel free to contact us at the information below here. You can email us at info@truthfulacting.com. You can call or text us at the number below. And you can ask us any other questions or follow-ups. We'd be happy to talk to you about what we're doing at the studio. We do have a new semester coming up this September, and we're going to be, we're right now we have a hybrid format, meaning it's in studio, but we have the option to be online on Zoom as well, looking into the class. And all of that information is on our website. So, but thanks again for joining me today. We'll be back again soon with the next acting session. So, thanks everyone.